You're watching TVC News now. Nigeria is regarded as the poverty capital of the world, as data from the World Bank reveals that every 6 seconds, one Nigerian falls below the poverty line. This grim assertion from the international community and organizations compelled President Buhari to initiate poverty reduction schemes with a promise to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty before the expiration of this administration in 2023. The social intervention schemes like the Empower, Conditional Cash Transfer, and some of the programs the presidency is using to try to achieve this feat. But rising inflation might be eroding the gains from the schemes as prices of food items, gas, electricity, and other necessities hits the roof. Joining me now via Zoom is Global Affairs Analyst Collins Wiki. Thank you very much, Collins, for joining us at this point. Now, according to data from 2016, now this data is from the World Poverty Clock. Now, from 2016 till date, approximately 14.8 million Nigerians have been pushed into poverty. And it says over 6.5 million Nigerians were pushed below the poverty line in 2020, which makes it the highest number of people pushed into poverty in a year. How would you rate all of this?
Poorly. Very, very abysmal results. And of course, if you consider the huge amount of money that has been spent and other resources, I mean, quite apart from non-monetary resources that have been spent under Empower and the rest of the initiatives, then you can only conclude that, this result is pretty abysmal. Now, there are, of course, a number of things that are not in the government hands. For example, the government didn't ask for COVID, but they got COVID. That affected the economy, and then the output has been affected as well. But there are a number of things that government could do, especially when they already had a skeleton in terms of the framework on how to fight poverty with the likes of Empower, among other examples. So what they needed to do is essentially, if that policy that they had in place is actually fundamental, if it was built on sound research, on sound policy research, they would have then been able to shore it up, to beef it up. So it is unacceptable that the 7 million that were pushed into poverty during this, as a consequence of inflation, but also, COVID-19, that was avoidable. And I do hope that with the recent plan to, lift 100 million out of poverty, that they can do better in terms of better strategic planning.
What more can be done? Because we see that prices of goods have skyrocketed over the past few months, and like as they always say in Nigeria, when prices of food or goods go up, it never comes down. And so how can we ensure that inflation does not affect any other thing? In fact, let's see a reduction in the prices of food items, gas and the likes. How can we do that?
Well, first and foremost, Nigeria, it has to be made very clear that there is enough resources to go around in Nigeria. But the disparity between the haves and the haves not is so wide, and the level of corruption, but also the impunity around that corruption, is so heartbreaking that when you talk about poverty reduction and you don't look at those fundamental issues, then you are not having an honest conversation. So let us start from there. Quite apart from a more strategic planning on the part of government, but also taking into consideration, because of course the government revenue over the last several years has gone, has had a nose dive as a consequence of oil prices, that has become very, very low. But you see, Nigeria kept talking about this, developing the non-oil sector and so on and so forth. Now, they've got to, get a lot more serious now. Of course, there have been quite a number of announcements to that effect. But also, there are quite a number of instruments that will help Nigeria to, develop production in Nigeria so that when there is production, there will be more money in circulation. But that aside, of course, intervening in the likes of N-Power will help, but we should not forget that there are also working poor, because it is not only those who are unemployed, who are not having any income that are unemployed, that are poor. The poverty also affects individuals that are working. I mean, what we refer to as urban poor. They go to work every day. The prices of things, for example, transportation, rent, and all of that are way above their earnings. Yeah. So they are working, yet they don't have disposable income. So these are all doable things. The government has got to get a bit more purposeful.
Earlier, you mentioned about something about the government has to strategically plan. Are you saying that the policies are not strategic enough?
No, they are not. They are certainly not strategic enough. There is a whole lot of short-termism when it comes to planning in Nigeria. I do recognize some of the fundamental challenges they have and the efforts to address them. Take, for example, the coming to life of what is it called now? The Nigerian national identity, where all
NIN.
the identity NIN, where all the identities have to be collated. That way, you have a good data of who is doing what, and who is where. That will help, of course, to curb the menace, for example, of ghost workers. In this case, individuals that are classified as poor, yet they don't exist, and so N-Power and other initiatives go to such people. So this will help to curb all of that, and government can plan a little better, knowing the number of people that have been pushed into poverty and so on and so forth. So I recognize all of that, and that is part of the long-term planning. And then if we were to take this announcement of getting 100 million people out of poverty within a period of 10 years, that's a decade. That's also strategic long-term planning. But let us hope that this has nothing to do with the election of 2023. Government wants to make a big announcement to be able to tell people, well, we are busy, you see what we have in plan, give us more time to do that. I hope they will assemble the best brains that Nigeria have to begin to look at all facets of poverty alleviation, look at examples that have worked in other places, and to know that poverty alleviation is not a one-off thing. It is an all-government activity. All of government has to be involved. So it is not a standalone, something that is loose and dangling somewhere. No, it has to do with, like I said earlier on, it has to do with fighting corruption as well. It has to do with, being more purposeful in terms of going the long-term way.
Global Affairs Analyst Collins Uweke, thank you very much for joining us at this time. Of course, thank you for your insightful contributions on the program. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.